Imagine waking up tomorrow and every word you know vanishes. No names for things, no sentences, no inner monologue, no way to tell anyone what you need. How would you find food? How would you warn your companions about danger? How would you pass on knowledge to your children? The silence would be absolute, and yet your ancestors lived in that silence for hundreds of thousands of years. They survived, they thrived, they built tools, raised families, and explored continents, all without a single word. You have probably assumed that language is the bedrock of human civilization. You have been told that words set you apart from every other animal. But what if that story is backwards? What if language is not the cause of your ancestors' success, but rather the late arriving icing on a much older, much stranger cake? The evidence comes from deep time. At the site of Blombos Cave in South Africa, archaeologists have found pieces of ochre engraved with abstract cross-hatched patterns dating back 77,000 years. These are not random scratches. They are deliberate, geometric, and repeated. Researcher Christopher Henshelwood, who led the excavations, argues that these patterns represent symbolic behavior, the ability to store and share meaning outside the body. But here is the twist. Those same people almost certainly did not have language as you know it. They had symbols but not syntax. They had intention but not grammar. The cave floor tells a story of a mind that could plan, could communicate, could create, yet the vocal cords were not yet wired for rapid, complex speech. So how did they coordinate a hunt? How did they raise children who would one day draw those lines on ochre? The answer lies in a different kind of communication, one that you still use every day without noticing. Your body is a conversation. Before a single word left your mouth this morning, you already told the world your mood through your posture, your glance, your hands. Your ancestors were masters of this silent language. The anthropologist Michael Tomasolo has spent decades studying the origins of human cooperation. He points to what he calls shared intentionality, the ability to understand that another person has a goal, and to work together toward that goal without needing words. In one study, Tomasolo found that human infants as young as 14 months can point to an object to help an adult find it, even when the infant gains nothing from the interaction. No other primate does this spontaneously. That pointing finger is a piece of ancient technology, a full-blown communication system that predates language by hundreds of millennia. You have probably pointed at something today. You did not think about it, you simply relied on a system that let your ancestors coordinate a mammoth hunt without a single sentence. Picture the scene 400,000 years ago, somewhere in what is now Northern Europe. A group of early humans, Homo Heidelbergensis, stands at the edge of a marshy plain. A herd of horses grazes in the distance. No one speaks, but one person raises a hand, palm flat, then lowers it slowly. That means stay low. Another person catches the signal and taps the shoulder of the person beside her, who then taps the next. The information travels like a ripple. Then the first person points toward a muddy bank where the horses will pass. She picks up a stone, mimics a striking motion. Everyone understands. They fan out, staying low, coordinating by gaze and by gesture. When the horses come, they drive them into the mud. The kill is quick, not a word spoken. Not a sound beyond the rhythm of breath and the soft thud of feet. You might call that a miracle of silent teamwork. But for your ancestors, it was simply life, and they had something else, something you have nearly forgotten. It is called mimetic culture. The cognitive psychologist Merlin Donald proposed that before language, humans relied on mimesis, the ability to reenact and imitate events. You see it in a child pretending to be a lion. You see it in a dancer telling a story without words. But for early humans, mimesis was survival. A skilled hunter could return to camp and reenact the hunt. He could show where the animal was waiting, how the wind shifted, where to place the ambush. His body was the map, his hands were the narrative. The entire group could learn from his performance, and that knowledge could be passed down through generations, no language needed. But here is the surprising part. Even with all this nonverbal sophistication, there was a limit. You could not discuss hypotheticals, you could not talk about tomorrow, you could not say what if. That limitation might have been an advantage. Without the ability to dwell on endless possibilities, your ancestors were forced to act in the present. They could not argue about different strategies because there was no way to explain them, so they relied on trust, on repetition, on doing what had always worked. The silence kept them focused. The counterintuitive twist is this. Language, when it finally emerged, may have been a tool for deception and argument just as much as for cooperation. The anthropologist Robin Dunbar famously argued that language evolved as a form of social grooming, a way to bond and manage relationships in large groups. But that bonding came at a cost. Once you could say, "I will help you tomorrow," you could also break that promise. Once you could tell a story, you could lie. Your ancestors who survived without language lived in a world of absolute honesty because any betrayal would be immediately visible in a gesture, a hesitation, a glance. Words gave you the power to hide. You can feel this ancient honesty in your own body today. When you are angry, your fists clench before you say a word. When you are afraid, your eyes widen. When you are lying, your voice may go up, but your shoulders know the truth. Your nonverbal signals are older and more honest than any sentence you can craft. Now consider a modern mirror. You are sitting in a cafe or in your home watching this video. You have not spoken a word aloud, yet you are understanding me. That is because language, for all its power, is deeply embedded in a much older system of meaning. Your brain processes the rhythm, the pauses, the intonation, all remnants of that pre-linguistic world. Children who grow up in homes where parents communicate through sign language without speech still develop full cognitive abilities. The content of the message matters far less than the shared intention behind it. The archaeological record confirms this. At the site of Jesher Benat Yaakov in Israel, remains of a 780,000-year-old hearth have been found with evidence of controlled fire. The people who built that fire knew how to choose wood, how to control the burn, how to keep it alive. They taught this skill to their children, but they did not have a word for fire. They did not have a vocabulary for smoke or ember or ash. They learned by watching, by doing, by feeling the heat on their skin. And they passed that knowledge on with a patience that you can barely imagine, a patience born from the silence. So the question is not how your ancestors survived without language. The question is how you survive with it. You have been drowning in words your entire life, labels, definitions, judgments, stories. You think in sentences, you dream in dialogue. And yet, the silence that terrified you at the beginning of this video, the idea of losing every word, that silence is not an empty void, it is a fuller space. It is the world your ancestors knew, where meaning lived in the tilt of a head, the curve of a smile, the shared breath before a hunt. You already know how to survive without language. You have just forgotten. Imagine waking up tomorrow and every word you know vanishes. You would still know how to comfort a crying child. You would still know how to point at the stars. You would still know how to walk with someone in silence and feel that you are not alone. That is the inheritance your ancestors left you. That is the survival skill you have carried unspoken in your bones for 100,000 generations.